Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this initial horror movie review video where I take a look at the newest Saw movie in the franchise, and that's Saw X, which is currently playing at theaters. Came out about 3 days ago, 2 days ago, I believe. And I just got back from the theater a little while ago, um, watching it for the first time, of course. So this is my spoiler-free Saw X review. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So Saw X is a 2023 American horror film and the 10th installment in the Saw film series, and serves as both a direct sequel to Saw, the original, and a prequel to Saw 2. It is directed and edited by Kevin Girdert and written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger. Kevin Girdert actually he directed Saw 6 and 7 and did all the editing for the other movies as well. The film stars Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith reprising their roles from the previous films, set between the events of the first two films. John Kramer travels to Mexico in hopes of an experimental procedure that may be able to cure him. Before long, however, the operation is proven to be a hoax, leading him to enact an elaborate and gruesome revenge on those responsible. So that's sort of the premise. So yeah, so basically John Kramer is told that due to his advanced brain cancer, he has only months to live. He attends a cancer support meeting where he meets Henry Kessler, who claims to have gotten the terminal diagnosis. Time passes and a physical destitute John is about to pen his will when he encounters a seemingly healthy Henry who claims to have been cured by an experimental Norwegian cancer treatment conducted by a group led by Dr. Peterson. A desperate John contacts the doctor's daughter, Cecilia Peterson, who refers him to her clinic in Mexico City. John is driven to the clinic by taxi driver Diego and meets Gabriella, who claims to have been cured by Cecilia. He then witnesses Cecilia and her team, Mato, Matayo, Valentina, and Dr. Cortez apparently performed successful surgery on another patient, Parker Sears. John also meets Carlos, a young boy who lives nearby. Surgery is conducted on John, and he wakes up to Cecilia congratulating him that he's now cancer free. Finding a new lease on life, John fixes Carlos's bike and purchases a gift for Gabriella. However, on returning to the clinic, he finds it abandoned and realizes that the whole operation was a scam. Oh, of all the people to double cross, you choose John Kramer. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise for Saw X. As far as the cast goes, we have Tobin Bell, of course, as John Kramer, Jigsaw. Shawnee Smith as Amanda Young. Sanov Sanov Makodi Lund as Cecilia Peterson. Stephen Brand as Parker Sears. Renata Vaca as Gabriella. Joshua Akamato as Diego. Octavio Hinsajora as Matai. Paulette Hernandez as Valentino, Jorge Brisnino as Carlos, and Costas Mandalore as Mark Hoffman. I'm sure I butchered a good number of those names, but yeah, that's the setup and the premise for Saw X from 2023, of course, playing at theaters now. So if you follow my channel, you know that I did a whole franchise review of the first 9 Saw movies in August, about a month ago, a little over a month ago now, as we're getting into October. Watched and reviewed the first 9 movies and ranked them. All in preparation, of course, for this movie, which I knew I would be seeing the end of September in theaters. Saw X. So we now have 10 movies in this franchise. And I have to say, you don't expect the 10th movie of a horror franchise to really be that good. So I won't say I went in with like no expectations, but I tried to keep them at bay as much as I could because it just doesn't happen where the 10th movie in any franchise, not only horror franchise, but any franchise for that matter, ends up being that great. And I can say this one is that great. It is one of the better Saw movies. I'll go ahead and say that. And that's not hyperbole. That's not just BSing because I just got out of the theater half hour ago. It really is a really really solid Saw movie. I don't know if it's my favorite of the franchise. That's hard for me because if you watch my franchise review, you know that I've really only seen the first 2 Saw movies more than once. I, Saw 3 through this one now I've only seen once. And so it's hard to say because I don't remember everything, and I feel like I need to watch them again before I can say what the definitive best Saw film is. But this one, in my opinion, definitely put itself in the discussion. There's no question about that, and that was a pleasant surprise for me. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things I liked about the movie. And the first thing that jumps to mind is they really get back to basics with this movie. They got rid of all the convoluted stuff that we tended to get in this franchise after Saw 3, all the way through Spiral, really, even though I like Spiral. More so through Jigsaw, I would say the eighth film. Spiral was kind of its own thing, but even there was some convoluted stuff in that. And here they just really get back to the basics of like the first movie in terms of the story and the setup. It all makes sense. It goes back to having a more believable and engaging premise, in my opinion, and storyline that really works. As the movie, of course, focuses on John Kramer having cancer, which we know because this is after the first movie, before the second one. So we know he's sick with cancer. Yeah, they just, but again, it turns out to be a really simple premise where he goes to try to get this cure, this highly experimental cure that isn't approved by any country. Finds out it was kind of a farce, to say the least, and I don't want to say takes his revenge because John Kramer Jigsaw doesn't take revenge. He gives people an opportunity to open their eyes a little bit and decide if that was really the best thing to do. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, this movie really does a good job. I think probably going back to Saw 2 or 3, you have to go all the way back to then, before, since the last time that we got all the convoluted crap out of here and just had a really good, solid, simple Saw movie. Tobin Bell is another huge positive. He jumps right back into this role as if he never left, and he's as good as ever. It might be his best performance playing John Kramer Jigsaw, and it probably is because he's the focus of this movie for once. He's never really been the focus of any of the Saw movies. He's always just kind of been there in the background, particularly after Saw 3 when his character dies, of course. But this is really his movie, and he does a great job with it. I was completely engaged throughout this movie. Anytime he was on screen, he's one of those actors that just has a presence to him that you just can't help but turn away. Even if he doesn't say a lot, just his expressions, everything Tobin Bell does, the guy's a horror icon, plain and simple. And he was all that and more here, especially the fact that I think he's over eight. I think he's 80 years old now or something. Now they did kind of do some de aging with him, but it kind of works too because he's sick with cancer. So if he looks older, it kind of makes sense because he's really sick with cancer, like stage 4 cancer. As somebody that's 60 might make themselves look 80 when they're really that sick. So it just kind of all works as far as the timeline goes. But he was fantastic. It was nice to have the characters and the traps that really deserve to be in the traps. And a lot of the movies, yeah, you find out a little bit about the characters, not nearly as much as we do about these characters, though. That's another positive for the movie. But these characters deserve to be tested. They deserve to be in these traps. And yes, I'll dare say some of them even deserve the fate that they get because they're just despicable human beings. And if this is like I said, some of the other movies you could kind of question whether John Kramer was going too far, or Jigsaw was going too far, but not in this movie. In this movie, it's played out in such a way that it really makes this movie different from the rest because these characters really deserve it. And we as a viewer are definitely on John Kramer's side in this one, more so than any of the other movies in this franchise, in my opinion. The movie also does a really solid job playing within being a sequel to the first movie and a prequel to the second Saw movie. It lands really well and comes across as being a necessary piece, which that's amazing when you think about 2004, 2005 when the first two Saw movies were made. So this is at least 18, 19 years ago. And they just tuck it in very nicely, very neatly, right between those two movies. And it's a necessary piece, especially as it relates to the relationship between John and Amanda and how those two characters interact and have good dialogue and even some heartfelt moments, despite what they do or what they will do. I thought they just did a really good job of tucking that in and not making it feel like it was an unwarranted. Let's just throw it between these two movies. There's a method to the madness, and it really worked well for me. Um, the traps are really good again. I won't say they're the best in the franchise, but I would say definitely top 4 or 5 for this movie. You got good practical blood and gore a lot of the times with a pretty good buildup of suspense as well. And some pretty cool, somewhat original traps. The one that's on the poster where you got the tubes on the eyes is probably the most iconic from this movie, but it's not actually presented in a way that you think in this movie. It's kind of interesting how they did that actually, but you do actually get to see the trap work, so that's cool. So yeah, for you diehard Saw fans that don't care as much about story and just want your traps and your blood and your gore and your carnage, you're still gonna you get it in this movie for sure. Um, as I said, I don't know that the traps are the best in the franchise here, but they're still very good, and the gore is good. There's definitely some cringy moments. There will be for some people. Um, let's see. I thought the third act is pretty intense in this movie and has some pretty good twists. It didn't exactly see how or where it was going to go, and I thought, or where I thought it was going to go, but it had a pretty satisfying end. I won't say it's the best twist of the Saw franchise. I still think the first two or three movies probably have it up on the twist. But it's not a bad twist. It's one of the better ones, I would say, in the franchise. Just not quite upper echelon, top two or three for me. But it is a very satisfying twist. That's the biggest thing. It doesn't leave you feeling disappointed or wanting more, especially given the final two characters that are left at the end. And I won't say, I don't want to, this is a spoiler free review, so I'm not going to spoil too much. But yeah, there's two characters that are left at the end, and let's just say it's very satisfying with that. So, those are my pros for Saw X. As far as cons go, I really only have two that I can think of right now. Maybe that'll change as it marinates in my mind a little bit more and I go back and rewatch it at some point. But Shawnee Smith's wig that they use, like I said, I talked about how they sort of use a de-aging process for Tobin Bell that actually works really well. That and the fact that he's playing a cancer patient very sick in this movie. So that worked. Not quite as well for Shawnee Smith though as Amanda. And that's mostly related not to her like her skin or anything, but mostly to the wig that she's wearing in this movie. Oh man. It looks pretty bad, quite honestly. Not sure why they couldn't have had a more effective or believable look for her character that are still tied to the first two movies. Because, of course, in the first Saw movie, she has long hair. And in the second Saw movie, she's got really short hair. And I don't know if they tried to do some version of it, but she's with the shorter hair in this movie. And I don't know. I just thought they could have done a better job with that. It really doesn't look good. And then, as I was talking about the final twist of this movie, there is one big logic gap that I have. And all I'll say is, without giving it away, that it involves a gun. And sort of my question is, why are the characters allowing certain things to go as far as they do, given the information that's known? So that kind of raises a question for me, and it's kind of a logic gap as to why things would play out the way they did, knowing what they know when the big twist is revealed. But other than that, guys, this was it's not hyperbole. This is a great Saw movie. Probably the best since going back to. I like it more than Saw 6. I know a lot of people are on Saw 6. They really like that one as far as like the middle movies. I think it's better than Saw 6. I think it's better than Spiral. The only thing I'm not sure about is if I like it better than the first three Saw movies. That's where more investigation is going to be needed down the road. But I would highly recommend seeing Saw X either in the theater or if you can, I don't know if it's streaming on Paramount or one of those services that allow new movies to be seen at home. But definitely check out Saw X, and I say that for both fans of the franchise in terms of the traps, the gore, and the carnage, and also people that were kind of always looking for a little bit more story and a little bit more believable in the setup since the first couple Saw movies. I think it really balances well, and I think most people are going to be happy with this movie, even if you've tended to only like the first couple movies and you're not all about the traps and the gore, but more about the story, or if you are about the traps and the gore, you're going to be good all the way around. So I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. That's just an initial rating. That could change, of course. 8.5 out of 10, though. I thought about giving it a 9, but I want to just sit back a little bit and let it marinate before I get too excited. But it is a very good Saw movie, Saw X from 2023, currently playing at theaters. Check it out. So I hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review for Saw X. Hope everybody's doing well, and please like my video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content. Thanks for watching. Stay scared. Bye.